I guess I kind of always grew up in church, from the age of 5, at least from what I could remember. But a relationship with God didn't really start till about age 14 when I gave my heart to Christ. From that point on, things really changed. I started taking up music, but the unique thing kind of happened in that process where, because at the age of 14 I started learning how to play music and learning instruments, I also became a Christian. And so my experience of learning music never really resulted in me becoming a musician as much as it did in me becoming a worshiper. And so everything I learned in school, I was applying it to what was the gospel saying, what does God want me to do? And so I never really grew up to be a musician. I kind of always just, this process from the age 14 on evolved to being a worshiper. And so it kind of changed my whole perspective, even going into adulthood, leading up to the different ministries and bands and whatever that I was a part of. The biggest part of my life in the last 10 years of my life has been me being a part of this ministry called Double Edge. And it was probably one of the most crazy experiences of my life. It was a decade, pure decade of just dedication and ministry and growth and hard times and difficulty. But at the end of the day, I found myself here, just kind of in a place of peace where I know God has been using me the whole time, but that wasn't the end or the be all for me. It was the life experiences that I've had. I'll be the first to tell you I'm not put together. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not the perfect man, and nor have I ever met the perfect man. And I know we all are achieving to be that, but I've never really accomplished it. So I think what I've been able to do is combine my life experiences and put it into my worship and put it into my life. I've always been an open book with my ministry. Anytime I go on stage and anytime I have the opportunity to minister to somebody, it never is something, I can never say something I've never gone through. It's kind of like a musician. You can never play a chord you've never learned, or a preacher, you can never preach something you've never studied. Or one of the things I was challenged with recently by a good friend of mine, Efren Goiko, he was like, a lot of times we're making our worship or even our music about us. And lately we've been challenging ourselves to how can we reflect it back on God. Everything that we do, our walk, our talk, our songs, our mornings, everything, our sleep, our evenings, everything that we do, how do we put God back into the center? How do we make God's name famous? So that's what I've challenged myself of doing on a daily basis, is not reflecting things on me, not, using what I've gone through, but ultimately leading it back to Christ and just sharing that gospel through life experiences, but always reflecting God, going back to Him, because I've messed up so much, I've been through so much, but at the end of the day, the only thing that's been real to me is Christ. The J. Cruz project sort of started, just recently, but it's been something that's been in my heart for a little while now. For the last decade of my life, I was a part of this amazing ministry, Double Edge, that totally transformed me. My way of thinking, my way of interacting with people, everything. And now that it's come to a close and to an end, I've realized, initially it was like I was being stripped of something that I depended on so much. And I know that we, as Christians, technically shouldn't, nothing should really be our identity, especially our ministries. That if you take it away, we're useless, But truth is, I dedicated a lot of my life to that ministry. And when I felt this sort of coming to a close, and God was doing it slowly and doing a slow transition in my life, I realized that I was like, wow, I did have a strong dependency on this ministry. And now I'm like, where do I go from here, And I sat down and just kind of said, God, do what you will. And it turned out to be the worst year of my life. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. I know that rock bottom, I haven't hit rock bottom in my life yet, but that felt like a hard floor. If it was just a level down, it was hard, and I hit a real bad place in my life. And to the point where, and this is me being real now, to the point where I was ready to sort of give it up. And I was walking in the street and I was like, God, and just when I was about to say I'm done with you, I started singing. And to give you a little background, I'm a guitarist by trade. That's how I made money. That's what I did. And I never sang before in my life. And I just started singing this beautiful worship song that I wrote, and to the point where I ministered it that very same Sunday at my church. And from that point on, it was just song after song after song after song after song. And ultimately what led to God just pouring in my life like I've never really experienced before, giving me joy that I couldn't really explain, and I couldn't obtain either. I had to share it. I had to give it out. And that's what led to the J. Cruz project. The way I got connected with Be Unique is basically through Eli. He's a good friend of mine. Met him back in a couple of years ago, I think now, when I was basically touring with Double Edge. He just kept showing up. I just don't know why, but he just kept being there. And I was like, who is this guy, But he turned out to be one of the coolest guys I've ever known. And his heart was so open to share, not just share like God's word, because we find that a lot in churches and through Christianity in general. But I think just the connection to people. He seems to have a really open heart with wanting to be not just helpful, but to truly connect. And so that's where I found, that's where I found like that connection with him, where I really wanted to be like, well, what are you all about? What do you want to do? And then how God has been pouring into his life personally and into this ministry. And I know that this ministry in particular and this vision is not just one-sided or one-minded. It's like kind of just something that kind of covers everything, and it kind of like a firecracker. It explodes and it goes in so many directions. And I see this ministry really just doing some really amazing things. And so, it was a no-brainer for me when he called me up and said, hey, I want you to be a part of this and be a part of this video. I was like, yeah, no doubt. It for me, there was ever no hesitation to say no. I'm J. Cruz, and I am unique.